There's no way that we could incarcerate our way out of the drug war. It's a method for corruption. If you had a magic wand today and you could wipe out all the drug dealers on the planet, drug users would start to create their own drug dealers immediately.
Take us back 20 years, put us on the street, I've got a gun, he's got a gun, we're going to shoot each other to death. Now we're sitting up here trying to tell you how to avoid it. When I became a police officer, I was living in Wall Heights, which is a Mexican barrio, neighborhood, hood, whatever you want to call it. When I became a deputy sheriff, I felt a little boost of ego. I had moved myself out of that neighborhood. I was going to raise my children in a better neighborhood. I felt elated. I was a better person. With police officers that I knew, I'm not speaking for everyone, they looked at suspects as not really being human. They're just a number that you're going to take to jail. He makes a mistake, he gets arrested, he goes to jail, it's over there for you. That's not a person, that's a suspect. We talk about ethics. Ethics come from the chief of police or the sheriff down.
Now you're trying to reach out to the people who are in the streets, but the question is, how can you reach out to them? Because they don't want to be unfaithful to you. Even if you go to the streets, they will run away from you. How do you do that? How do you reach out to them?
They don't run from me. They got my book is a bestseller right now, and it's because street people been buying it. They looking for answers, but nobody's really giving them answers, and most people don't want to give them the truth. Anytime that they start knowing the truth and not sugarcoat it and tell them something that's not real, and then when they come up and they find out that you lied to them, then they're going to think that everything you said was a lie. So it's better to be blunt and truthful with them. They're going to find out anyway.
80% of the drugs that came into California, this gentleman controlled. So therefore, 80% of the guys that were employed, that was in gangs, were for me.
I believe that society not only fails us, but it brainwashes us. It's like a double-edged sword. On one hand, you tell the kids not to sell drugs, but then on the other hand, you have on the radio guys who are bragging about the wealth that they created from selling drugs. And then you have a kid who's in poverty, who mother is barely able to pay the rent, the lights get cut off, people put eviction notices on their door, and then you tell them, well, you don't participate. I think that we have to start holding everybody accountable or nobody accountable. You just as guilty. All I did selling drugs, all I did was tell guys to go and sell drugs. I didn't touch the drugs. I didn't cook them. I did the same thing that they do, but they get away with it. They don't have to pay a price. And as long as you allow people to do that, then they're going to keep making it look as if it's cool to sell drugs, and then our kids are going to keep falling in those same traps. So
it ain't the babies that's causing all this ruckus, because that's what we quick to point the finger at these babies, saying they going crazy, they going to, yeah, because you haven't provided what you're supposed to. You haven't gave them adequate service to serve them. They shouldn't be starving. They shouldn't be worrying about what they're going to wear. They shouldn't be worrying about the roof over their house. 50% of our babies are in school, LA Unified School, or foster care kids. That's a something shame. I ain't gonna tell you that. That's a something shame right there. It just shouldn't happen.
it was a thing my lawyer said to me one day. We were in the visiting room, and it really drove me to study the law harder than I'd ever studied before. He said that anytime somebody else wants for you more than you want it for yourself, then you're in trouble. And what I took from that he meant that if I expected somebody else to come into my community and straighten up my community, and then I was in for a rude awakening.
When we were kids, they had a little keyhole. And you can look in the bathroom in the keyhole, and I saw my uncle in the bathroom freebasing and a glass and filled up with white smoke. And I was about 8 or 9 years old, and then 10 years later, became this drug dealer. And I always thought about doing but never did, but didn't realize that I was doing it. Why? It's because if he was smoking, he spent $25 to put in something and it fuzzed up in a cup like this, and I'm cooking 200 kilos every day, every other day. Who's getting hired, me or him? So it went in my system, who supposedly never smoked crack, into my wife's system, and as you can see, my daughter was born as a crack baby because the doctor came to us and said, "Hey, you got a crack baby. Who smokes crack? Did your wife? Do you?" I said, "No." And so, to go in there and to Martin Luther King Hospital, and I said, "Hey, I want to see her," and she weighed 2 pounds. Always tough to talk about. But if that wasn't the turning point is that when you walked into that room, there was hundreds of crack babies who were just
Would I do it again, knowing what I know now, today? No. But the experience that I have gotten out of my life is invaluable.
So who's accountable now? See, that's one thing we all have to ask ourselves. Who's accountable? Am I accountable for what happened to my sons? Yes. Are you accountable for what happens in your neighborhood? Maybe yes and maybe no. Are these guys accountable for what happened when they were dealing drugs? They accept responsibility as well as I do. How much responsibility are you willing to accept?